Morale is super important in Football Manager. You want to make sure you take care of it so you don't have any random dips in form and don't have any issues that you have to deal with. In today's video, I am going to go over some of the things I do to try and improve my team's morale and keep it under control. If that sounds good to you, make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, and let's get looking at keeping these players happy. So the first thing is pretty obvious. We'll get the obvious thing out the way first. It's win your games. If you're winning, your players are going to be happy. Nobody likes to lose. I especially hate losing. So win your games and your players will be happy. We have yet to lose a game this season in the league, and my players are pretty happy. And that's not a surprise because they're playing, they're winning, everybody likes that. So that's the obvious thing out of the way first. Win your games. Second thing that I like to do is I like to praise my players. That could be for their training, or it could be their conduct, how they conduct themselves around the club. If you go to training and individual at the very top, you can actually see how well all your players are training. And then you can praise them on how they are training. So find the player you want to praise. In this case, we're going to do Angelo Preciado. Come up to the top here where it says praise. And then I like to put my arm around him. I like to give him a big hug. And I say, you've done really well in training. Keep it up. And you'll notice here, they say, thanks, I appreciate that. The morale has actually went up a notch. And he's pleased, he's happy. I do this every single training. And if you were to watch this save on stream, because I do stream this live on Twitch, you'll see me do this every single time I get that training email come through. And every player that has an 8 score or above for training gets praised. But what if your player hasn't trained very well and you still want to improve his morale? You can see here Brian Heynen is a 6.7 in training. Can't really praise that. So you can then praise their conduct. You can say, you've done really well around the club. I like how you're acting. Keep it up. To do that, you can come up to discuss, praise player, and praise conduct. Again, I like to put my arm around him, and you get a bunch of different options. Pick the one you like best. I like, as captain, you fully appreciate your role, blah blah blah, you're promoting the club very well, blah blah blah, the club is lucky to have you. We'll pick this first option. And you can see this player's morale has again went up a little notch, and he's happy with that chat. So praising is one thing I do, but you can also criticize the player, and that actually improves their morale as well. You can criticize their training. I tend to only do that when you get somebody in the red rating. As soon as they're in the red rating, I criticize their training as soon as I see it. As soon as I see the red, they're getting criticized. But you can also criticize their form or their last match or anything else that you want to criticize. Mario Stroikins for me had a 6.3 in the last game, so I'm going to criticize his last game. Go to discuss, warn player, criticize last game, put my arm around him and saying, your passing last game wasn't good enough, you squandered a lot of your possession. We'll try that one. And he goes, fair enough, I'll do better next time. So he's very happy. You can see his morale again has gone up, and I've criticised him. I've said, you've done a bad job, and he's got happier. And he says, great for having this talk with me. Players appreciate you taking note that they're not doing very well and trying to help them get better. So you could also criticise their recent form or their conduct as well. Now there is a chance that the player might not agree with you. Criticising a player is a lot more risky. Praising a player rarely comes with any negative effects, but if you criticise a player wrongly, you know, it's going to be detrimental. But it's a good one to keep in mind. If the situation warrants it, criticize a player will also help improve their morale. Another thing you can do to improve your team's morale is subscribe to this channel. Go down below, hit that red subscribe button, hit the like button too, and your players will appreciate that. They appreciate you trying to improve your Football Manager skills by watching this video. So yeah, hit that subscribe button. I'm not joking. Another thing to do is to manage your players' playing time expectations. When you sign contracts with players, you can actually say what playing time expectations they should get, like a star player, important player, fringe player, or breakthrough prospect. There's a lot of different options, and each of those come with an expectation of how much that player will be playing. But you can change this later on, and depending on how much you play the player will depend if they accept a lower playing time. Managing a player's expectations will lead them to complain less. So if they're expecting to be a fringe player, they're not going to be expecting the playing time of a squad player. Does that make sense? So we see here I have Simon Jukarod. His actually agreed playing time is a squad player, but his actual playing time is of a fringe player. And you can see he expects to be a fringe player. So we can actually change his agreed playing time to match that of a fringe player. So on the happiness tab of the player profile, you can change this. Click on change, all the different options appear for you, and then you select fringe player, change playing time, and he accepts it. Give this a go with your players. Try to get their playing time expectations to be correct, but the game will tell you if the player is not going to accept it. So here we have Paul Inuachu. He's down agreed playing time as important player. If we were to put him down as a squad player, it comes up and says, my client will be upset if you put him as a squad player. But we can select regular starter and we can change that down. So it's good to manage and keep on top of the playing time expectations. Something that could be detrimental to the player's morale is if you break any promises to them. To see what promises you have promised, go to home, and then you can actually go to promises here. And you can see I have 2 promises. I've told Brian Haynen that we'll be playing youth players in centre back because we sold an older centre back. And we also have John Lassimi saying that I would play him in his preferred role, which I've been doing. If you were to break any of these promises, you would lose trust with that player, and it takes a long time to recover that trust. So it's better to make sure you don't break the promises in the first place. The Dynamics tab is where to keep track of pretty much anything to do with any of the happiness, morale of your club. Everything is here for you to see. You can see your team cohesion, the club atmosphere, the managerial support, what promises and issues you have open at the moment, and your top influencers in your dressing room. But also in the Dynamics page, you have the happiness tab. Here, you can see everything that makes up your players' morale. You can see here what promises you've made to players. 1 promise left to Brian Haynen. You can see his morale is quite good currently. Training he's delighted with, is satisfied with his treatment, satisfied with the club, concerned with the management, I'm surprised about that, and concerned with playing time. So his overall happiness is content. It's always a good idea to make sure you're up to date with this page because you can actually ward off problems before they happen. If you hover over these, it gives you more information about them. You can see that he's pleased with the overall training and he's happy we have a dedicated coach for strength training. If we look at Riamande, we can see he's dissatisfied with the club. So if you hover over that, we can see that he's starting to think he should move to a bigger club. And Arezzo's unhappy because he wants a new contract. And he's actually complaining to his teammates, so he's going to be dragging down that morale. So it's something you'll want to try and fix. And you can see all the people who are concerned with their playing time. So it's good to come in here, spot any issues, and then try to fix them before they become actual issues. The game gives you lots of hints of what to improve. So if a player's unhappy with training, it'll say they're unhappy with training and say why. Like a player thinks they should be doing more quickness training, give them more quickness training and that'll fix it. If you've got them individually training crossing and they say it's not making any difference, take them off of that and that will improve their morale with training. The game helps you out a lot with this, so pay attention to what it's saying. You can also do team meetings to try and improve morale. Now I personally am terrible at team meetings. I hate them. I can never get them right. So I tend to avoid them, but you can try them. You can, if you're in a bad enough form, try to galvanise your team. Before a cup game, you can try and jeer the players up. For me, I think having a bad team meeting is worse than having no team meeting, so I tend to avoid them, but they're there to be used if you want. Something else to pay attention to is the hierarchy in your club. Again, under Dynamics, there's hierarchy. You can see the team leaders, the highly influential players, the influential players, and then everybody else. And if you click on someone in here, you will see connections with other players. So if I click on my manager, you will see everybody that supports me. If I click on Brian Haynen, you will see what social group he's in. So he's part of this core social group, and you can see everybody else who's part of that. At the side here, your assistant manager will give you feedback. And we've already covered that Brian Haynen's not the happiest at the moment. So it says we should actually go and look at that before it becomes an issue. Because he's a team leader, he will have a stronger effect on other players. Therefore, his morale will affect other players more than a player who's upset in influential players or in other players. You want to make sure the guys at the top you look after. If they're happy, that will have an effect on everybody else in the club. Basically, the more influential a player is, the more effect they'll have on your team. So keep them happy. One final thing to do, and that's to do with your training, is to make sure you add in team bonding sessions. Team bonding sessions are so important to improving your team's happiness and their team cohesion. If we look here, team bonding impacts happiness greatly increased, team cohesion increased, the attributes teamwork are increased. So I always make sure to add in team bonding at least once a week. It's another thing that will keep players happy, which is what I've been trying to do. And you can see from my squad view, I have a morale column here. Brian Haynen is quite good, Van Hoesten's good, Gotts is good, Gressens is very good, Rakers is very good, and everybody else in the club is extremely good or above. Excellent, superb, exceptional, perfect. I've been looking after morale as much as possible, and I've also added in the agreed playing time and the playing time happiness to my view, so I can keep an eye on it here. And I can see players are concerned with their playing time, but I know why this is because I've been resting a lot of my key players before the final few games of the season where we could potentially win the league. So all these guys that are currently concerned with their playing time will likely be featuring in the next few games, which should hopefully resolve that, and I'll definitely be trying to resolve Arezzo's contract problems. The game all highlights this for you, so if you pay attention to the signs, you shouldn't have any morale issues. And all your players should be happy, which is what you want. Anyway guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you're new. I'll catch you guys in the next one, and cheerio!